The world is shifting, and the skies above us are once again becoming the battleground for competition and rivalry between superpowers. For over 40 years, space has been a relatively quiet space in terms of competition, but now countries are looking back up to the stars, seeing new opportunities to expand their influence as humanity prepares to settle on the moon and eventually Mars. More rockets are being sent up to space than ever before. A race has begun to try and build bases on the moon and Mars, and now countries are even testing their military capabilities in space if hostilities on Earth grow. The reason? Geopolitical power. And as we have seen, a country with geopolitical power doesn't necessarily need to follow the rules that have been established over the past 100 years. This is the new space race.
We live in historic times.
And I think that nations work in their own interests.
As years grow, China will land on the moon and block the world out.
As of 2026, only 5 countries, excluding the European Union, have the capabilities to launch spacecraft into space: the US, China, India, Russia, and Japan. While other countries such as Australia are catching up, many of these countries are still far from being considered key players in the space domain. Ever since the early 1960s during the Cold War, the US and the Soviet Union constantly tried to beat each other in achieving certain space capabilities, with the US ultimately winning the first space race after landing humans on the moon for the first time in 1969. While the geopolitical tension in space declined in the decades after the introduction of the UN Outer Space Treaty and the creation of the ISS, countries have still tried to compete in beating other countries in certain space capabilities. But what are these space capabilities? Space capabilities refer to a particular task that a country can do in space. For example, sending a person into low Earth orbit is considered a space capability. The US remains the biggest player in space thanks to NASA, but also thanks to new private players such as SpaceX, Rocket Lab, Blue Origin, and Boeing. Currently, the US has the widest range of space capabilities, with it still being the only country to send humans to the moon in 1969. The US also has the capability to build and send its own satellites into space, develop its own space station, and conduct unmanned missions across the entire solar system. Close behind is China, which recently has unlocked the capabilities to operate their own space station and send humans into low Earth orbit, and their attempt to land on the south pole of the moon as part of the Chang'e 7 mission with their own moon landing preparations in the years to come. A bit further behind is India. India's focus is different. Rather than competing with the big powers in terms of accomplishments, India is competing in areas of efficiency and cost effectiveness. They have successfully conducted some of the cheapest space missions to date, such as the Mars orbiter Mangalyaan and the Chandrayaan-3 mission. India is currently expanding its capabilities to include manned missions, with the hope of building their own space station, the Bharatiya Antariksh Station. India has also been expanding the number of private players that are in the space industry, with their own private companies catching up to US companies such as SpaceX. Russia and the European Union have their own limited set of space capabilities. While the EU uses their space facilities to launch satellites for scientific and commercial purposes, such as the Gaia telescope, they mostly conduct manned missions alongside the US. Russia's space capabilities have slowly been declining over the past few years, but Russia continues to present a very clear problem in our current legal system for space affairs, and that's this. There are very few laws that govern what actually happens in space, and this leads to an opportunity to exploit space, almost to the point where it's too late, and this presents scary prospects. For instance, both Russia and India have been developing defense capabilities to shoot down satellites that are in orbit, with the aim of using this technology to destroy GPS satellites of rival countries. The US set up the Space Force, a new branch of the military with the sole purpose of monitoring and developing space defense capabilities. China has also been conducting maneuvering tests to see if it can maneuver satellites into position to cause harm in space. And if a conflict does start here on Earth, and it extends into space, we could see the end of many satellite-based services, such as internet access for remote communities, satellite data to monitor natural disasters, GPS, and many other crucial technologies that we have relied on over the past 20, 30, even 40 years. But moreover, this creates new flashpoints which could fundamentally change the geopolitical landscape in drastic ways. If any organization, whether it be a government organization or a private company, figure out how to mine resources on other planets, then this race to acquire as many resources as possible accelerates in space. Just like how the melting Arctic is providing new flashpoints for conflict as countries like the US rush to claim resources and territory, such as Greenland. We risk creating a new era of colonization, but instead of it being on Earth, it's in space. Rare earth metals are already known to exist on the moon, which is why the US is so eager to establish a long-term presence on the moon. If they beat everyone else to the moon, then they can develop strategic independence by not having to rely on countries such as China for refined rare earth metals. For China and India, the race is far more symbolic. If they are unable to catch up to the US, then not only do they risk having a significant disadvantage going into the future, especially as space exploration ramps up, but they also risk missing their goals, such as China's goal of becoming a space superpower by 2045. It also risks them becoming economically dependent on countries like the US as these new worlds begin to open up new financial opportunities and markets for investors, creating a new 21st century economic boom. A small advantage can turn into a large one if countries don't keep up. And as space is a frontier with practically infinite possibilities, those that can tap into this opportunity first will reap the most benefits. Whoever controls space at the start will become the de facto global superpower for the centuries to come. Space is no longer a shared dream, but rather it's a race for dominance. The danger isn't just who gets there first, it's who gets left behind. So the real question isn't who gets to space first, it's who gets to decide what kind of future we build once we get there.
The great British explorer George Mallory was asked why did he want to climb it. He said because it is there. Well, space is there, and we're going to climb it. And the moon and the planets are there. And new hopes for knowledge and peace are there, and we're going to climb it.